Welcome to Conservative Roundtable. I'm your co-host, John Estrada. Today we have a very special guest. He's the Executive Director of Gun Owners of California, Sam Paredes. Sam, welcome to our show.
Thank you very much, John. It's an honor and a pleasure to be on with you.
Thank you. I appreciate your time and your effort. You're really helping our gun owners here in California for many years. And first of all, let's find out if you could just tell us who you are and how you got started doing this.
Well, Gun Owners of California was founded by Senator H.L. Richardson back in 1974-75 when the first handgun ban bill was introduced in the state legislature. Senator Richardson at the time was a member of the board of directors of the National Rifle Association, and he went to the leaders at NRA and said, hey, do you guys care if I start one of these new fangled political action committees? This was right after the Nixon-Watergate problem, and all of the states and the federal government, they all had campaign finance reform, and they created this entity called a political action committee, but nobody had ever created one. So Senator Richardson created one. He used the NRA's fundraiser, Richard Viguerie, who you might recognize his name, and in a very short period of time, he created Gun Owners of California and then Gun Owners of America as an organization in the state of California to fight for crime control and against gun control. And in our first year of operations, he raised over $1 million from 300,000 contributors. So you can blame Gun Owners of California for basically inventing direct mail fundraising for political purposes. We did it way back then. Thank you to Richard Viguerie and here in California. And from 1975 to 1989, not a single anti-gun law was passed in the state of California because we were strong enough to defeat them. As a matter of fact, in 1982, we defeated Prop 15, which was a statewide initiative to ban the possession of handguns. So we've been around for 41 years. I've been doing, working for, or been on the board of directors with GOC for the last 36 years of my life. This is what we do. We've dedicated our lives to protecting the Second Amendment here in California. You and I were joking earlier. We feel like we live in occupied territory behind razor wire here in California, and this is where the battle rages, and that's why we're here. That's why I'm here talking with you, sharing with you what Gun Owners is doing and what people can do to be engaged to protect their Second Amendment.
Yes, you've been doing a lot of great work for many years, and we really do appreciate it to protect our Bill of Rights. You know, without the Second Amendment, you know, we really don't have anything. That sort of gives us the backup to protect our rights. So if you could tell me, there was a big election today. Do you want to go into that a little bit?
Sure. Let's talk about that. First, all gun owners throughout America to understand that the election of the next president is of incredible importance because he or she will be appointing at least one and probably three, maybe even four Supreme Court justices. So what's happening in the presidential elections is of a monumental and epic importance. Today we had what seems to be the third Super Tuesday. It looks like Donald Trump he won in Florida, he won in Illinois, he was very slightly ahead in Missouri, and so we'll see how he lost in Ohio, big time loss in Ohio. Yep. Which he said he was leading in, and candidate Trump, Donald Trump, has pledged his support to the Second Amendment. Our issue is that, you know, it's one thing to say that you support the Second Amendment and that it's going to be really strong and it's going to be protected, but what does that mean? You know, when he has the previous track record of supporting the Clinton semi-automatic ban, the assault weapons ban in Congress, and the high-capacity magazine ban. These are so-called assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. in the past, and now he says he's changed his position. Well, if he becomes our president, I sure hope he changed his position. But just because he has a CCW doesn't make him a champion of the Second Amendment. As a matter of fact, if you remember, Dianne Feinstein had a CCW, so what is that?
Exactly. Now, you do have a candidate that Gun Owners is supporting, and that is Ted Cruz. Tell me about Ted Cruz. Why does Gun Owners of America support Ted Cruz?
Our national organization, which is the one that can participate in federal elections, Gun Owners of California, is barred by state law from participating in federal elections.
Okay.
By federal law, actually. And that's why we had to create Gun Owners of America. GOA has been supporting Senator Ted Cruz since last year. They endorsed him. Our chairman, Tim Macy, has gotten to know Ted personally, has introduced him at many rallies, many events. He has shot machine guns with him. He has spent much time with him, and what we can tell you, this guy is absolutely true blue. He's humble. He's the smartest guy in the room, and it doesn't matter who's in the room. He is extremely dedicated. He knows the Constitution and loves it. He respects our founding fathers. He does not bend to the will of the establishment Republican Party and the Republican leaders in Congress. He will not be pushed by anybody. He wrote an amicus brief for several dozen attorneys general throughout the country in support of the Heller versus Washington, D.C. decision. So he is a true blue defender of the Second Amendment with a huge track record. He's humble, he's smart, he's dedicated, he's young. Exactly what we need as a president, not only for the Second Amendment, but for all of our rights and for the future of America.
So he's really a fighter for the Constitution, too.
Absolutely. He can teach courses on the Constitution. He's a stickler for it, and one of the strongest defenders we have.
Okay, with that statement, we're going to go and take just a break, short break, and we're going to go to the Bill of Rights, and then we'll come back and talk with former Senator Phil Wyman. He'll be having this discussion with us with Roundtable. And Phil is also a candidate for U.S. Senate. So a short break, seeing the Bill of Rights, and we'll come back and finish our discussion. Thank you.
Amendment 1. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Amendment 2. A well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Amendment 3. No soldier shall, in time of peace, be quartered in any house, without the consent of the owner, nor in time of war, but in a manner to be prescribed by law. Amendment 4. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrant shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched, and the persons or things to be seized. Amendment 5. No person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime, unless on a presentment or indictment of a grand jury, except in cases arising in the land or naval forces,
or in militia, when in actual service in time of war or public danger,
Nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy of life or limb, nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. Amendment 6. In all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy and public trial by an impartial jury of the state and district wherein the crime shall have been committed, which district shall have been previously ascertained by law, and to be informed of the nature and cause of the accusation, to be confronted with the witnesses against him, to have compulsory process for obtaining witnesses in his favor, and to have the assistance of counsel for his defense. Amendment 7. In suits at common law, where the value in controversy shall exceed $20, the right of trial by jury shall be preserved, and no fact tried by a jury shall be otherwise re-examined in any court of the United States than according to the rules of the common law. Amendment 8. Excessive bail shall not be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishments inflicted. Amendment 9. The enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. Amendment 10. The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively, or to the people.
Welcome back to Conservative Roundtable. Our guest is Sam Paredes, Gun Owners of California, and now Phil Wyman has joined our conversation, and Phil Wyman is a candidate for U.S. Senate. So welcome, Phil.
Thank you. It's good to be here with you and with Sam and the good folks that supporting the Bill of Rights. I don't even let people divide the Second Amendment from that. I said, the Bill of Rights are the Bill of Rights, and if you have problems with the Second Amendments, then you must have problems with the Bill of Rights, which makes no sense. So I'm a very strong promoter of constitutionalism, and nothing is more important than being able to defend yourself, your family, with the right to keep and bear arms, period. That's why it's number 2, right next to speech.
Thank you, Phil. Okay, so Sam, tell us some more about tonight's big historic election, and we'll talk a little bit more about that, and then go to the next.
Well, great. Although candidate Trump, Donald Trump, is winning some of these elections, he's winning them by a narrow margin, a narrower margin than the polls showed he was ahead. And Senator Cruz is gaining quite a few delegates. And as if things continue to go the way they are going, Donald Trump is not going to have a majority of delegates needed to be declared the Republican candidate for Congress by acclamation on the first ballot.
Yes.
And we have this Republican system, this of primaries and going to convention when we exercise our First Amendment rights to assemble with people of like mind in order to select our leaders. And we know what the rules are now. We're going to follow those rules. And at the convention, we're going to decide who our Republican nominee for president is going to be. And if nobody has a majority, it's just going to take a lot of hard work on our part in order to put together a coalition of people that will find that Senator Cruz is the right person. He is the one who consistently on polls, surveys throughout the country, defeats Hillary Clinton head-to-head in the general election, and that is of massive importance. So it ain't over yet. the fat lady haven't sung yet. So this election still has a long way to go. And I'll bet that California is going to play an important role in the primary elections for the Republican candidate. So the presidential campaign is coming here to the Golden State, and that's a beautiful thing.
I believe that's June 7th, isn't it?
June 7, that's correct. You know, I might parenthetically say, we've had death in our family in San Francisco, and I think I was very much touched by the death and the killing, the murder of Kate Steinle. I went and testified on behalf of a group called Fallen, basically saying that what Kamala Harris was and others are doing, known as sanctuary cities or sanctuaryism, is totally unconstitutional. It's inconsistent with the rule of law. And it was interesting as the testimony was made by, as a matter of fact, the victims, the family, the father of Kate Steinle. I presented the document that was from Colin. I did not feel that it was appropriate for me to be speaking when the families were literally still trying to deal with what had happened. But I was so impressed with the commentary and the cross-examination from Senator Cruz. I find him to be an incredibly knowledgeable, sharp, and focused person. I have even indicated as an opportunity to be the United States Senator, the junior senator, I would definitely want to be on the Judiciary Committee. Nobody is I think, more qualified as one who's testified before that court than Ted Cruz. And clearly we need to have a replacement and not let any of that occur, shall we say, during this interim until we have a new president. And one of my principally wrong opponents is former Chairman Duff Sudham, who went to the, believe it or not, went to the Democrat Central Committee and also put out a press release on the 15th saying, he said, well, I guess it's okay. We should support the president in his making that offer to PAC even before a president such as Ted Cruz might come to the fore. I think that that's the best evidence of the kind of person you want dealing with an issue of who would be the new members of the United States Supreme Court.
Now, one thing that's coming up here is a candidate, Kamala Harris. Tell me, Sam, about Kamala Harris. How much do we have to work to defeat her and help Phil or somebody like Phil to do that?
John, all we have to do is tell the truth about her, and we should be doing it in spades.
Yeah.
Kamala Harris is running the California Department of Justice almost like I liken it to a criminal enterprise in the manner and fashion in which she is running the programs that have to do with firearms ownership, background checks, the dealer records of sales. The armed prohibited person system is an absolute travesty. Now, this is a program where the state of California takes a database of people who legally purchase firearms and compares it to a database of those people that have gone to court and have been found guilty of a felony or a disqualifying misdemeanor, and they're supposed to simply compare the database, and they will be able to tell if some of these people who are now ineligible to own guns might have them. The easy thing would be is to call them and say, did you legally divest yourself of your firearms when you found that you were now ineligible? And they could say, yes, I did, and here's the evidence, and that would be it. They tick it off, and it's done. Instead, Kamala Harris sends SWAT teams with black suburban SUVs with lights and sirens and guys jumping out in ninja suits with machine guns and pounding on doors late at night saying, we want to, let us in. We need to talk to you about your guns. We want to find out about your guns. And the databases are so weak, and the backlog that they have is in the thousands. unaccounted for situations where database says there's somebody who shouldn't have a gun who has a gun. They have been unable to clear up that backlog, even though the state of California gave them $23.4 million to hire all of the staff that they needed, because the Department of Justice said we can clear that backlog in 1 year if we had $24 million. And they gave them $24 million, and they are still backlogged. And the Auditor General's Office of the State of California has said that this program is a disaster. They've come back several times and said it continues to be a disaster. And she's just a pure left-wing radical for anything that is left. And for her to represent California as a United States Senator would be an absolute tragedy. So Kamala Harris is golly, I'm trying to think when the last time, if California ever had a United States Senator who was so ill qualified as Kamala Harris.
Well, how about
President seems to like her. President Obama seems to like her. He thinks she's the best looking Attorney General in the country, but you know,
she's very prejudiced.
Taste.
She refuses even to defend those items, such as Proposition 8, that was identified, just like Prop 13, under earlier people that represented California when there was an abuse by the railroads. The notion that neither she nor the governor would even defend Proposition 8, regardless of whether you're in love with it or you hate it, is a clear violation of her oath of office. And the way in which she says and is required to give an even-handed description of items that are before the voters, such as her comment that, gee, changing the number of people who are in jail was 47. I mean, this was a total disaster. I was the principal author in the Senate, along with Bill Jones and others, with Mike Reynolds. We had three strikes, you're out. It was working, but without the help of Kamala Harris, and by allowing to go on the ballot with a description that, gee, this won't hurt anything, something that has allowed many people who are dangerous to people who are not criminals and have them on the streets, is just an example of the kind of prejudice that she has used. The Kate Steinle killing and the comment that she made, geez, sometimes there are mistakes. Well, when you can't even, it's sanctuary city. She is the mother goose of sanctuaryism in the state, which is upside down. I ran against her in the Attorney General's race, and so many things came out that are just not consistent with what even a liberal Democrat would do. Jerry Brown always got the reports that he was required so that people could know. These weren't, with the AG's office, there are all kinds of different obligations, and there are almost 5,000 attorneys. But it seems like she waits until there's some type of a balancing, and then she makes decisions that, in my opinion, are inappropriate. They're inappropriate simply because they're late, and they're inappropriate because she seems to be balancing things other than justice. So she is a bad seed, and the notion that she would be the United States Senator, given her unwillingness to impose just the ordinary law that says law enforcement has a right to enforce the law, and then even to push it so far afield that even when there is a known illegal that is from the Middle East, that she has actually been known to questioning whether the federal government can do this, even under the current administration. So she needs to be defeated because she's not fair. She took an oath of office that she's clearly violating. And her lack of knowledge in important issues such as water and others, which make sense for the future of this state, I think are reasons that she's very vulnerable, and the right candidate who can focus on those vulnerabilities and put forward a better, more balanced approach for guns, but for many other things, I think is some of the reason that I believe that I am a candidate who will look forward to those kind of debates and also seeing her defeated.
Sam, let me ask you, what can citizens do in California to help defeat Kamala Harris? How do we connect with gun owners of California to ensure that we have an army to defeat her in this election cycle?
Well, unfortunately, gun owners of California cannot actively campaign against Kamala Harris because we are a California-only political action committee, but gun owners of America can. And this is what any gun owner can do. They don't need an organization to do this. But if one gun owner were to identify 10 new people and get them to register to vote and commit to vote pro-gun, and then show each of those 10 people how to go out and reach 10 more people themselves to register to vote and to commit to vote pro-gun or conservative, and you do that 5 times, you now have over 1 million new voters in the state of California, and over 1 million new voters can dictate a new direction for California away from people like Kamala Harris, away from people like Gavin Newsom, who fancies himself the next governor of California, away from so many members of the state Senate and Assembly that let me give you a perfect example. Today I testified in the Assembly Public Safety Committee, and Assemblyman, the chairman of the committee, Joan Sawyer, he, after my testimony, in his closing comments said, when I pointed out that the bill we were considering was unconstitutional and was actually being considered by the United States Supreme Court right now, he said, "This is California. We don't pay attention to the Constitution."
Oh, my.
So those types of people will be set aside, but it takes one gun owner to find 10 new voters, and they find 10 new voters. And we do that 5 degrees, 5 times, and we end up having 1 million new voters. Even if we're not registering new voters, but we get people to commit to vote to defend the Constitution of the United States, the Second Amendment, and all of the Bill of Rights, and we can dictate. And it won't matter what party they are, whether they're Democrats or Republicans. If they're voting to defend and protect the Constitution, they're going to elect pro-Constitution candidates. In California, that means the vast majority of them will be Republicans. And they can do that even in so-called heavily dominated Democrat districts if we can just get the people. It's not an easy thing to do. It's a simple thing to do.
Now,
we have to put in the work to make that happen.
That's cool. Now, if they wanted to, though, they could join your organization. You have like a membership, Gun Owners of California, and you have events and stuff like that. Why don't you talk a little bit about how they can be actually connected with your organization? You have such a good one.
In order to be involved politically in defense of your Second Amendment, we invite you to join Gun Owners of California. You can do that by going to our website, which is gunownersca.com. That's GUNOWNERSCA.com. You can call our office at 916-984-1400. You can come to one of our dinner events that we have in different parts of the state. We have one coming up on April 22nd in Citrus Heights in the Sacramento area. It's a crab feed and tri-tip steak dinner. We're going to give away probably over 60 guns.
Wow.
And we're honoring law enforcement there. We'll be doing a tribute to 3 sheriffs that have been leading the fight to protect the Second Amendment in California.
Cool.
Or you can buy one of our raffle tickets on an annual basis. We have something called a 52 Guns in 52 Weeks raffle, where we give away a new gun every Saturday, and At the beginning of the year, you can get a ticket. You can call our office and get a $50 ticket, puts you in 52 different raffles,
Wow.
and that automatically makes you a member. And all we do, John, is we just provide you, our members, with information. We provide them
Excellent.
4 newsletters that tells them what's happening in the elections, what's happening in the legislature, what's happening in the courts.
Cool.
And then we tell them, we bring them with a call to action. This is what you can do. This is who you can call. This is how you can participate. These are the elections that we are concentrating on, and we need your help.
Okay, how about some of the big issues of the day that are happening in California regarding gun owners? Are there some major issues right now?
John, this year, there have been over 25 gun bills sponsored in the state legislature. The vast majority of them will take away our rights. Over the last 2 weeks, I've testified against 2 bills that will, in essence, ban the future possession of all semi-automatic rifles, centerfire rifles. We're talking Ruger Mini 14s, Browning BARs, any semi-automatic Kel-Tecs, all of the ARs, all of the AKs, anything that takes a magazine as of June 1st, 2017, will no longer be allowed to be sold in the state of California, and anybody that has one of those here in the state of California will have to register it as a California assault weapon. Now, what happens when you do that, when you register your rifle as an assault weapon with the state of California, it means that when you die, the gun dies. You cannot will it, give it, sell it to your children or to anybody else in the future. When you die, your gun dies. And you're limited as to where you can use it. The federal government says that if you have a California assault weapon, you have to ask permission of these agencies if you want to use Bureau of Land Management facilities, land to go shoot. You want to hunt in the national forest, you have to ask permission if you're using a semi-automatic centerfire gun. So we got 2 bills in the Assembly, 1 bill in the Senate to do the same thing, to ban semi-automatics. They say they're going after the AR-15s, the black guns, but they're really, the way they've defined it, they're going after all semi-automatic rifles. We've got, there's a bill in the Assembly that will limit our purchases of guns to 1 gun of any kind a month. That means we will only be able to buy 1 rifle or 1 shotgun or 1 handgun per month. It doesn't matter what kind. If it's a bolt action, it doesn't matter. We cannot inherit all of our father's guns or our grandfather's guns all at once. We have to inherit them and take possession of them 1 gun per month. You want to buy consecutive number collector's guns. You're buying a collection. You can't do it. You can only buy 1 gun per month. So this is absolutely ridiculous. And John, what it boils down to is the Democrat anti-gun leadership in the state assembly and the Senate. They are ticked off at us. They are mad. They are angry because we are buying so many guns. Last year in the state of California, we purchased over 1.75 million guns in California in 1 year. Last month, February, 214,000 new guns were purchased by Californians. Every month seems to be a new record. And it chaps the hide of the members of the legislature. So they're sponsoring all of these bills in order to slow us down in our acquisition of firearms. Yeah. We tell them, hey, we have 40 million guns in private possession. We are not a problem. And they hate that. Now, they don't like it. That's why they're doing everything they can to make it more difficult for us.
Now, no, wait, before. The other candidate that is also running, her name's Loretta Sanchez. She totally is all mixed up, too.
Yes,
why don't you talk a little about what Loretta Sanchez thinks, and then we'll get to Phil, and Phil can fill in the blanks there, too.
Okay. Loretta Sanchez is from Southern California. She's a congresswoman. She's considered by many standards as being a moderate frankly, on the Second Amendment, I believe she's got an F rating. I don't know that she's ever supported the Second Amendment at all in her entire career. She's anti-gun, so as far as I'm concerned, she's disqualified also. She is criticizing properly Kamala Harris for her misuse of funds at the state of California, at the Department of Justice, for implementing some of these supposedly crime prevention programs. They take the money that we give them for background checks through the dealer record of sales, and they put it into a fund. Well, that fund has now become a slush fund, John. Every time they come up with a new program at the state legislature, they say, the cost, what's the expense of this program? Oh, it's minor and absorbable. Well, that means that they're going to dip into the dealer record of sales funds, the funds that we pay for our background checks, and the law says cannot be used for anything except law enforcement with regards to our purchase of firearms and background checks. They're dipping into that to pay for all kinds of stuff. That's illegal. That makes that fee a tax and requires 2/3 a vote of the legislature, approval of the people, in order to be utilized that way. And it's a criminal operation. We have been demanding for years that Kamala Harris release the budgets, the accounting on the dealer record of sale fund, and she refuses to do so. And every time we talk to the DOJ people that are in charge of the Firearms Bureau, they tremble when we tell them we want to know where all of that money comes from. Because the state has borrowed tens of billions of dollars from that fund to pay for other programs. During the Budget Act, the governor borrowed $11 million from the dealer record of sales surplus, and that money is supposed to be put back. That money is supposed to go back into that fund. And
there is incredible amount of abuse, but on top of that, and we were talking about different items that the people identify as important, as constitutional, as protected, in a free society, and her unwillingness to do that is a violation of her oath. In fact, she has violated her oath when and this had not really bubbled to the top until the Kate Steinle murder occurred, in which case the sanctuaryism and that issue, Fox, various, all over the country, people have been saying, well, what on earth is going on here? Why is that happening? And the reason is because it's not the rule of law. It's against the law. And I think that particularly the efforts, and they're not always as far as I would like to be, but in the Senate and the House, they did say that sanctuary cities, to the extent that people are not arrested when in fact it's under the jurisdiction of a federal government, that they can do it, and it's not the opportunity, you might say, of Kamala Harris. When she was DA, though, many very good people lost their lives because the rule of law was not enforced. But when we saw the Kate Steinle murder, it was so obvious that people from both left and right said, well, who is running this? And many of the items that were to go on the ballot for people to expect an evenly bounded, identified description of what, like, let us say, Proposition 5 for. What is Proposition 5 is, here's the yes, here's the no. There wasn't even an attempt by her to do that. Those are the things that I think even the former governor, who was Attorney General, he just flat asked her, why aren't you getting your reports on time? You've got 5,000 lawyers that are doing it. You're not doing it. You may be there where there may be something that you want to change to it, but he always did it on time. And again, for her not even to take up issues that, or to do that which she has taken an oath to do, that is, when something is put on the ballot, that folks can say, this is what a yes does, this is what a no does. Interestingly, she did not do that. I actually carried a piece of legislation with the support of a very special person we all know, H.L. Richardson, that required, and at least in the ballot, it said this is what a yes vote means, this is what a no vote means. So it allows people to say, well, gee, this is really not very good. But in the absence of that, or with the absence of her even opining, that is, giving an opinion as to what is or isn't constitutional, what the consequences are, is a clear violation. She should not be holding that office. So I think that this election circle and this time when there are so many people that are upset, there was something called the bathroom bill, and her decision on that allows boys to be in girls and vice versa. Just the average Californian, regardless of what their philosophy was generally, they're looking at this and saying, who is doing this? Where did this come from? So she is in need of being replaced and defeated, certainly not becoming a very powerful representative of the state of California.
Well, I know I would rather have Phil making the choice of who our next U.S. senator is going to be, or our next judge is going to be, instead of Kamala Harris. What do you think, Sam?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the comment?
Yeah, as far as Kamala Harris, it would be a lot better to have somebody like Phil in there than Kamala Harris making the decision who the next judge is going to be.
Well, selecting, and of course that's why I love Ted Cruz. He is so alert, and as a member of the Senate, I would love to see him be the president, but as a member of the Senate, he is on the Judiciary Committee. I have, as a member of the Supreme Court bar, said I'd like to be there as well, so that we could really be sure that somebody isn't slipping their way into the Supreme Court, giving us 20, 30, 40 years of bad law. Gun Owners of California and of America are an amazing organization that grew up because there was an abuse by elected officials and not enough information for the average American, the average Californian. And I can say personally, and as a person that has observed your organization and the national and the right to life, and right to life is important, but the
NRA,
the NRA, National Rifle Association. But for that, we need to have leadership that has taken their oath and understands that it goes back to the abuse by the British coming into people's homes. I mean, this isn't something that just grew from nowhere. And your efforts have been, very, very stellar. But you need the backup of decent people like Ted Cruz that can tell a phony, a person who says they'll be even and will go and will look at cases that in fact are covered with they are not even-handed, and they want to get on there basically as she did, just to show the unconstitutional efforts that she can take that cause us all problems.
We're going to take a quick break here, and we'll be back to wrap this up. This is Conservative Roundtable. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be back. Thank you.
I understand that when the mainstream media covers immigration, it doesn't often see it as an economic issue. But I can tell you it is a very personal economic issue. And I will say the politics of it would be very, very different if a bunch of lawyers or bankers were crossing the Rio Grande. Or if a bunch of people with journalism degrees were coming over and driving down the wages in the press. Then we would see stories about the economic calamity that is befalling our nation. If I'm elected president, we will triple the Border Patrol. We will build a wall that works. We will secure the border. I'm Ted Cruz, and I approve this message.
Welcome back to California Conservative Roundtable. This is Sam Paredes with Gun Owners of California and Mr. Phil Wyman, candidate for U.S. Senate. we're going to talk briefly about the vacancy or the passing away of our Chief Justice Scalia. Sam, tell me what you think. How important that is to us here as conservatives.
Well, Justice Scalia was a lion. He was probably one of the staunchest defenders of our founding fathers and the written word of our Constitution of any member of the court in the modern age. He had a way with words. Yes. He would, when challenged, and do you believe that the Constitution is a living, breathing document? He would say, no, the Constitution is dead. The words will never change. They are engraved in stone. They should be read for what they mean, and they mean what they say, and they should not change. So I do not believe in the living, breathing Constitution. And the fact that he is gone is a travesty. We've lost one of the brightest, most articulate defenders of our Constitution and our Bill of Rights and civil rights of anybody who served on the court in a long, long time. And our condolences go to the family of Justice Scalia, to his colleagues. He was such an interesting soul. His best friend on the court was Judge Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Totally opposite in their philosophy regarding the Constitution, but they were best of friends. They would share holidays and vacations together. I'm told that they would even spend Christmas together. Now, Ruth Bader Ginsburg is not a Christian; she's Jewish.
Yeah.
But that was Justice Scalia. He was able to be a gentle man and a humble man. Who could be rough and tumble and brusque when necessary. We need that seat filled with a good justice, and I applaud the United States Senate Republican leadership for saying right off the bat that they were not going to approve a judge that is submitted by President Obama, because we know it would be one that would set America back for generations if the Senate were to approve a judge that was vetted by President Obama. The president has a constitutional responsibility to nominate somebody, but the Senate has a constitutional responsibility to either approve or advise or to reject the nominees presented by the court. So they are doing nothing wrong, nothing unconstitutional. Thankfully, in a very recent case, it made big news. Justice Thomas has stepped into the role as the new vocal defender of the Constitution, and he broke his silence after 10 years of not asking questions on the bench when hearing cases. He opened his mouth to ask questions in the case of Voisin versus the United States, and this is a case where a person's Second Amendment rights were not being restored to them, were being taken away from them for committing a misdemeanor. And his question to the Solicitor General of the United States was, is there another instance where somebody has given up a constitutional right as a result of committing a misdemeanor? And they tried to weasel around, and he kind of, in his big voice, kind of got them centered, and they had to admit that no, there are no other cases, no other instances where somebody loses their constitutional rights because of a misdemeanor violation. We look to Justice Thomas to be our standard bearer for quite some time. He and Justice Scalia on 2 occasions wrote dissenting opinions when the Supreme Court refused to grant certiorari on cases that were important with regards to the Second Amendment. There were cases where the various circuit courts of appeal were basically thumbing their nose at the Supreme Court and using standards of review that Justice Scalia warned they shouldn't use when he wrote the decision in Heller versus Washington, D.C. He said there is no need for a balancing test. There is no need for intermediate scrutiny or even strict scrutiny.
Right.
The Second Amendment has its own level of scrutiny. It's the words of the amendment itself where it says shall not be infringed.
You know,
And he did say that there are a couple of places where the Second Amendment might not apply, and that being courthouses and maybe schools. But that was it. People are saying that, like that, and they are to include all kinds of other things, when in fact, Justice Scalia was pointing out the only places where he thought that the Second Amendment might not apply. But Justice Thomas is taking that slot. The next president is going to have an opportunity to fill Justice Scalia's seat. There are plenty of candidates out there on the bench, and who are not on the bench, who are attorneys, who are staunch defenders of the Constitution, believers of the written word, who will uphold the same philosophy, the judicial philosophy as Justice Scalia. And if we do our job right and we elect a Republican as the next president, and then we do our job to hold that president's feet to the fire to make sure they appoint good justices, we will be okay. But that is the only way we will be okay. One thing is for sure, if Ted Cruz is elected president, you can bet your sweet bippy that the people that he nominates to the court will be exactly like Justice Scalia, and that is one of the reasons that I am so supportive of Senator Ted Cruz, because he means what he says, and he says what he means.
I can expand on that.
Very important what's happening in the courts.
Go ahead,
It isn't just with guns, it's with liberty. It's with freedom. It's the First Amendment. It's the Second Amendment. It's the Fourth Amendment. It's the Fifth Amendment. It's the Ninth. It's the 10th Amendment. We need to have justices that say we need to revitalize and renew the 10th Amendment and cut government out of so many things that it's doing and give that to the states for them to do as they see fit, as our founding fathers first envisioned this, and not allowing the federal government to usurp so many areas of our lives and to control them from the federal level.
What do you think,
We
Phil?
need justice that will take us back there.
And Sam, when our family came after the Civil War, we went to San Bernardino County. I represented that area so long. And when we had the murder of 14 wonderful people that were working in that county, it really touched me, and it taught me and reminded me when I was in Israel after the Gulf War, and had a chance to see some youngsters at the Sea of Galilee, young Israelis, and as they came to maturity, everybody was a member of the army. And we stopped there and we went, and I observed something that really touched me, because we don't seem to have it here, and we need to have it. And that is, as these young people came, and that's everybody, female and male, they got a Bible, they got a gun, an M15, and that gun was theirs. It was there to defend them. And as I think of what happened in San Bernardino, and as I think of the fact that people talk as being that shall we say a college or a school is gun free, I mean, there are areas in this state and in this nation, lots of places where those who are qualified and legally having a gun, that they will have it at that venue. So you just don't see the only people with guns being those that do not legally have the right to them. And what I saw in Israel, right at the Gulf War, when the Scud missiles were coming in, they had an armed young cadre of Israelis who were there to defend by having their gun, by having it not just belonging to the Israeli government, it belonged to them. And I'll always remember that scene and the pride of the parents with the rabbi blessing it. I mean, that's why they're so strong, and that's why if I am the United States Senator, I'm going to do everything within my power to be sure that those who are trained to use weapons are at our universities, are at our schools, so there won't be massacres, that we saw in the Second World War. It's said that the only areas where Jewish people could really defend themselves was in the ghettos, where their weapons weren't not all taken. And I think that the average Californian, as they look in San Bernardino, why couldn't there have been somebody that could have kept those murderers from taking those lives? So Gun Owners is educating. They have been doing this, and I so appreciate what you're doing and what nationally, which grew out of your organization, how wonderfully it's defending the Second Amendment and the Bill of Rights here in the United States of America.
Well, Sam, I think, and Phil, we're going to have to wrap this up. It's a great discussion. I'd like to have you both back on at another time, basically to promote our rights in the Second Amendment. So thank you, Sam. I appreciate your time. Any final thoughts?
Yes, Californians are buying guns at record levels, and hopefully we will regain the reputation that we had during World War II when Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto said that we will never invade the west coast of the United States because behind every blade of grass would be an American with his own gun. And what he didn't say is to kill us.
Thank you, Phil.
So we need to work hard to restore our rights. John, thank you so much. Phil,
Thank you.
It's good to talk to you.
Good to
it's a
have
pleasure to
you
be here. It's
on
an honor.
board
Keep
doing
fighting.
those good things.
Our state is too important, and our country is of immense importance to the world. So thank you for spreading the word.
Thank you so much.
You bet.
CentralValleyTalk.com